If you can,
We have a
I
question? Oh,
have a question from a reader um, who can't be here. What is something that you're worried about right now?
worried about right now?
Yeah,
Ah, um, honestly, I'm worried about people not being able to access services that they need. I'm worried about the collapse of the Social Security customer support system. I'm worried about the fact that there's now a 2.5 year delay on Social Security disability processing claims. I'm worried about people needing to contact their government for services and they can't get a hold of anyone. I'm
yeah.
worried about just basically a broken government that doesn't serve people. That is what is worrying me at this time. Because of the stuff that I mean, we have to remember there's still nothing that Trump has done that isn't reversible.
You
it's
know,
not he hasn't passed any legislation yet effectively. There's no major legislation at all. So, as far as, like, structurally, like, changes in the law, there's nothing really there. The problem is the damage he's done to the functioning ability of our government.
I mean, I do agree that there's hope in the sense that um, a lot of this can be undone. But I also see stuff like what is happening in the uh, Department of Justice. Those 100 lawyers that resigned from the Civil Rights Department.
Yeah,
That stuff, and we saw that under George W. Bush, the erosion of the independence of the DOJ. And because a lot of those positions are career positions, once it gets poisoned, I kept waiting for us to fix that and it never got fixed.
yeah.
And now it's
Well,
getting worse. So I do think there's issues, there's ways that this stuff isn't getting fixed. But let me tell you something I'm a little concerned about.
okay.
Uh, there is an election on well, it will be decided on June 4th. It's open until June 4th in the DC bar, the leadership for the DC bar. Now that DC bar oversees like 120,000 lawyers around the country. So who is running for that? Um, Brad Bondi. Yes, he is the brother of Pam Bondi. And what could happen? There is another person running against him, Diane Seltzer. If anybody knows lawyers that are able to vote in this election, make sure they know they should. And she seems to want to use this position to uphold the law and support lawyers at this time, which is pretty critical. But what could go wrong here is, ostensibly that position picks other positions beneath it that can then remove people's license from them,
Yeah,
in the worst case scenario. So you would then be replacing judges around the country with people who were Trump loyalists.
yeah.
So,
So what you're talking about is a Trumpy takeover of all elements of the legal and justice system.
yeah. And I think that, I mean, obviously, he said, oh, I was planning to do this before the election. If anyone wants to have more of the Pam Bondi family in positions of legal leadership, um, I would like to know why. So,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean
feel
this is just an extension of the corruption.
right. Oh, this is exactly what they do in an autocracy. This is one of the first things they do is take over the legal system, because then you're going to use your take over the legal system to make legal your illegal acts.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they're doing. Um, my other concern right now is state legislatures that are trying to implement the SAVE Act, which we know is DOA on the federal level, but Republicans are pushing this in a lot of states. And New Hampshire has implemented it, for example, and they already saw a lot of problems um, with that. So people not being able to vote, and a lot of it is women. Like there was some woman who got a divorce in 1970 in Florida, and her divorce records are gone, and so she can't vote now.
Yeah.
That's, really appalling, and even the people that worked there were like that were registering voters were pretty heartbroken that to turn people away.
Yeah.
Um, and what is all this about? They justify all this by saying, "Oh, we can't have illegal people voting." But illegal people are there are very few instances of anyone that is illegal trying to vote.
Yeah, you're talking about, like, 2/10 of one, not even 2/10 of
Yeah,
1%.
and it's not an
It's a
attempt
number in the single
to
digits and
subvert
dozens.
an election. It's more like people get confused and think they have the right to do something when they don't. They're not trying to interfere with our elections the way
Yeah.
Trump people are. So
Yeah, I mean, I know that you're new to doing this kind of, chat too, so I just want you to know that there is a bit of a delay from what you and I see to what goes out to, the people watching, like 5 or
okay.
10 seconds. That's not anything on our end, I think that's just the way Substack works. So, if you see anything in the chat that the chat looks a little behind or anything, I think that might be a little bit why.
I'm not even able to get on the chat, so I'm like have this open, but I'm not
Yeah.
on the chat. So
Yeah, it's a little discombobulating for me because I have one eye on each screen, and I'm seeing 2 different things at
yeah, I don't
once.
see the questions here.
Yeah, there's so far we have, people are still joining, and, no fresh questions have come in.
Okay,
You should see them on the bottom of your phone there, but right now you'll just see people joining, I believe.
okay.
Yeah, I I think, Robert, sent us that a lot of the damage that's been done to NIH, CDC, FTC for research and health will have a lasting impact that is not easily undone.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's true. The time that's lost now won't easily be made up. But if you in the future, if funding is increased or doubled for those things, it will go a long way towards making up ground. And this does present an opportunity. Like instead of thinking about necessarily what is being lost, I really like the attitude that this gives Democrats, when they retake power, a chance to rebuild the federal government and
Well,
actually make
yes.
it more modern and more efficient and make it perform better than it did before. Because one of the things about our federal bureaucracy is with each presidential administration for years, and Trump is doing the same thing, but in reverse, they keep layering parts on top of parts. And nobody thinks about how the total whole actually works. And if it still works, and that's how you get, departments that are some duties that belong to two different departments, and sometimes things contrast and contradict with each other. And you end up with sort of bureaucratic deadlock. Uh, this is a chance when it happens for Democrats to rebuild things and improve a lot of things. I really like that attitude. It's something that Pete Buttigieg has floated. Something that Tim Walz has floated. This isn't so much, yeah, that we're losing. What we're losing more than anything is time.
And I like that idea too. The question I have is are can we find Democrats bold enough to actually do that? A and B, can we have a base that gives them the cover that they need to do that? Um, because we have two problems. The Democratic Party that I can see has two kind of major problems. And one is that the people at the top and the people in the consultancy class, they're not responsive to the base.
Yeah,
And I wanted to talk to you about that. Um, you mentioned this the other day when we were talking about this, the way that Bernie and Biden had redone the DNC nominating process to get rid of the super delegates, and that was a lot of what they were trying to get that control back when we saw them trying to get Biden out.
yeah,
So that problem hasn't been solved, right? That's still
yeah,
there, and that keeps. the party from being responsive to the base. We don't want, you know, the tail wagging the dog, but we do want people not responsive to big money, to big business, to special interests. They need to be responsive to the people, and then they would be bold enough to do these things.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be some business person who says, "Oh, don't do that because, whatever." And also because of regulations. I mean, just basic stuff like that. I'm I need to see who would be in charge and who would do this stuff.
Yeah, I think what and I agree with you completely. I think that they need somebody who is willing to be bold and innovative.
Yeah.
Every single Democratic presidential candidate, because and it's not too soon to talk about this, because once Democrats win the midterm election next year, all the attention is going to go towards the Democratic presidential primary. The first presidential debates for 2028 for the primary will probably be somewhere in the middle of 2027. So we're not that far away. We're far away, but not that far away. So you're going to hear every Democratic presidential candidate say, "Oh, we need to restore all this stuff that Trump has broken or taken away." Well, that's true. But we also need somebody who's going to be an innovative and bold thinker to build for the future. It's not enough to say, "Oh, we got to fix this."
I mean, I've come to the point, and I think I mentioned this in one of my pieces that they radicalized me. Uh, so
You have the look of a radical.
don't I though? No, I mean, because I've been this sort of um my personal leanings being uh I would be living in France if I were living in the political atmosphere that was right for what my that aligns with my values more. Um, but I was born in this country, so here I am. So, but I'm also like very practical, and I'm so for a long time I've been tempering all of that with like we have to be practical. But now what they've done is completely radicalized. They've radicalized me in the sense that I'm not willing anymore to um, say, "Oh, okay, we'll just take this one step at a time." It's like that they went in here with bombs and destroyed everything.
Yeah.
So go in there and remake it the way it should have been in the first place. And for
It,
example, um, we need the Equal Rights Amendment passed for women. Uh, if we had these rights enshrined, a lot of the things, the ways that they're attacking our rights could not be happening. So,
let me jump in real quick. The whole bunch of people just joined. So let's remind everybody, if you got any questions, please put them in the chat. I will read them out loud. Oh, I see our old friend Sean, our old Politicus USA colleague
oh,
Sean is here. Hi,
Sean,
Sean.
hey, everybody, Sean, can you put Sean's Substack
Oh
link
yeah, or Sean.
somewhere in the chat for
I know
everybody?
Sean's here. Sean, you can put it in the comments there, the link to
Yeah.
your Substack
Sean
here in the
used to
chat.
write with us. He is a wonderful writer and a wonderful person. He has a Substack, so everybody can follow him and read his work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have people that we really enjoyed working with over the years, and Sean is one of them.
Oh yeah, a
So,
lot of people.
yeah, a
And
lot
I've
of
missed a
people.
lot of these. I mean, my
Yeah,
gosh, we have had some great writers, and I miss these people. But they got worn. I mean, and a lot of things happened, but one of them is that people got really worn out by
yeah,
Trump 1.0. So, and I can't say I'm not there. I mean, I've really been trying to gear up for this 2.0, and honestly, it's just in the last couple weeks that I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. I'm just keeping it real with everybody. I mean, I can't write those things because that's not the job,
yeah.
but I feel those things.
You
Yeah.
can see Sean saying, "Hey guys," and he put his link in there for everybody to go and check out.
Oh, good.
It's the Blue Dot Bulletin. Go give it a read.
Yeah.
We subscribe. We get feedback on show. We get Sean's stuff in our inbox. Um, Great stuff. We've all so we need to talk about, I think, what we're going to do about Trump.
Okay.
What can be done? What will be done? Okay, I need to ask because I've been writing about this a lot, especially since Sunday over on Politicus USA. I need to ask what what do you think of Trump's capabilities? Is he still on top of things? What's the difference between Trump part 1 and Trump part 2 in your view?
Oh my gosh. If I had to, of course, I don't know. This is supposition, everybody. This is my opinion. I don't have facts to back this up because the facts are being hidden from everybody, even if they are out there. Um, Donald Trump has always been secretive and really put out propaganda about his health, even in the first term. He was able to function in that first term. And I think when he got COVID in the fall, was that of 2020? Um, he really seemed to go downhill from there. And I don't know that he ever really recovered from that. And I'm not talking about just physically, but when we saw him campaigning in the 2024 election, he didn't make sense a lot of times. So, and as you pointed out, we don't see him stand and walk around that often anymore. Now, I don't really care about his age. That to me, I'm not into ageism. And I get really tired of the way that is, um, especially on the left, like bandied about so often as an accusation. Yes, we need good liberal progressive thinking, but that doesn't always come in the guise of an older person. Sometimes it comes, in a Joe Biden, for example, and Nancy Pelosi had a lot of really progressive policies. Um, anyway, I don't see that in Trump. I don't see him. Like just when somebody asked him about the strollers and he couldn't recall the name of a baby stroller, and he says he doesn't know what his own people are doing. He
Yeah.
says that a lot. Like he wasn't aware of the signal thing. Um,
He
he
didn't seem
does
to know what signal was.
No, he did not know what signal, and I think he doesn't know. I think he sits in his little office surrounded by all this, like, tacky gold stuff that he put in there, and he's talks about the way he wants the country to be, which is all about enabling himself to be a dictator, to have, unchecked power, and the people around him go scramble to make that happen, and they don't even and I think a lot of this is actually the way he operates like a mob boss, is that he doesn't specifically tell them to do something. And so just like the way they removed aid from Ukraine and and I think it was fighter jets or something, but they pulled that stuff back. And then when he was asked about it, he was like, "I don't know anything about that." And then the White House was like, "Oh, that was his order." And then Pete Hegseth was like, "No, I just did that." I mean, so this is how he always avoids accountability.
Yeah.
And in that way, he's very wily, and that doesn't seem to have changed. But is he cognitively here? He's very compared to the first term. No, this is a degraded version of Donald Trump.
Yeah. And the comment I get all the time and comments when we write about this stuff is, we need to get him out right now.
Yeah,
You wouldn't disagree with that, I think. But, the problem is there's really only 2 remedies. There's the 25th Amendment, which would have to be invoked by his own cabinet, and that's not going to happen given the construction of this cabinet, and, impeachment and removal, which also isn't gonna happen because Republicans have control of the Congress. And even if Democrats had the House and did impeach, we've seen what happened the first 2 times they impeached Trump.
yeah.
Republicans aren't gonna vote for not enough Republicans will vote for removal. So, what do you do? Like, when you wake up in the morning and you know that we're stuck with this guy, what goes through your head
Well, you're asking me as a person, not as a journalist. Um,
as a human being on planet Earth?
as a human being, to be honest, every morning I wake up and think, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. It's okay right now. Today is a day. We're going to take it 1 hour at a time sometimes. That's what I tell myself. Because, and I've now like limited myself to not reading politics before I go to sleep because I've been waking up, it gives me nightmares. I wake up with nightmares. So that's what happens. That's what runs through my mind in the morning. I worry about all the people being hurt. A lot of it is irrevocable, in terms of the people being deported, or it's not even deportation, the people being removed and kidnapped and taken to this prison in El Salvador, for example. So I worry about all that stuff, and I just have to try to tell myself, focus on what I can control today, and what I can control today is to write for our readers, to um, inform without terrifying. That's really what I think the job is right now, is to, because if people stay engaged, this has a much less chance of turning out to be, what Trump and the Republicans want it to be, which is to turn into an autocracy. When people stay engaged, even with these lawyers that are being targeted around, and the judges being targeted, people within the government, they see you guys out there protesting, and that gives them the courage and the knowledge that they are supported in what they're doing if they're resisting um, the sort of uh, the attempts to push the government into doing things that are against a democracy. So um, all of those things matter, and I think it's part of our job to help people stay engaged. And one part of that is that people, if they get too upset, they get too angry, if they get too scared, they're not going to be able to stay engaged. And that's what he's trying to do. That's what all these arrests are about. The arrest of the judge was about that. He's sending a message to everyone, to be afraid, to back down right now and give him what he wants, or else.
Now, well, you mentioned protest, and I think protest is powerful not just as a way of publicly showing your displeasure with the administration or pressuring them. I think, and see if you agree with me here, protest is a way of disempowering. Because the thing we can do, we can't get rid of Trump without Republicans, but you can disempower him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most important part of it. Is it what it does is it shows the media, it shows other countries, it shows people within this government that he does not have support. And that is the most important message, and that's something that the people can do, um, and they have been doing so effectively. That message, there's not enough of that. And if you just look at, what happened in Florida, every anti LGBTQIA bill that was filed in the Florida legislature this session failed. There is
Yeah,
a lot of pushback. Pushback is effective. And it is effective now. Once a government like what he wants gets established, it's a lot harder
yeah.
to for pushback to matter. So now is the time.
So disempowerment involves public protest right now,
Yeah.
pushing back, saying no, public protest right now. And then the second phase is voting. Voting in
Well,
the
yeah.
special elections this year, voting in 2026 to elect Democrats. And then the big because a lot of Trump's power, in my view, isn't coming from his power grab. He's trying to take power, but he's running into the limits of the executive branch. The empowerment is coming from congressional Republicans.
Yeah. Those
By
people,
congressional Republicans not holding him accountable, by congressional Republicans putting Trump ahead of the country and letting him do whatever he wants, by not fulfilling their oath of office in the House and Senate, these Republicans are empowering Trump. So the way to disempower him is to reassert the Congress by electing Democrats, make the Congress a co-equal branch of government again, and make Trump not a king like he wants, but one third of a co-equal branch of government.
yeah, I mean, but I hope that happens. That's the voting. They're trying to erode these voting rights all around the country. And that's why I brought up New Hampshire when we first started, where they've implemented the SAVE Act. And the people need to be very, very aware in their own state. Are they trying to implement the SAVE Act? And if they are, get out there and tell them that you will vote them out if they if they implement that because we can't have that. Um,
Remember, it's just 4 House seats.
but we need as many House seats as we can get,
Yeah,
in my opinion. Um, and yeah, that's a good reminder. But I just look at what's already happened. Like this is too close of a margin, in my opinion.
yeah,
One person gets sick, somebody else has a family issue, and then people aren't there to vote. So we've got to like, there's got to be some kind of
yeah. I mean,
non.
that's what is, historically speaking, very likely to happen next year. By the way, we have a lot of new people. I said this before, we have a lot of new people joined on top of those people previously.
Hi,
Um,
everybody.
if you
Hi, thanks
guys
for
have any
joining us.
questions, leave them in the chat. Can Congress members be removed from office slash impeached before the next election? Question from C3. Ah, that's a good one. The answer is yeah, well, no.
Yeah, well, no.
They would have to be, as you saw with George Santos, the process would have to go through the House itself. It usually involves an ethics investigation and then a vote for removal. So yeah, you could do that, especially in the House, but um it took George Santos committing several federal crimes to get
Yeah.
removed from the House.
And
It's
I
not
don't think
gonna be
that's
an
why
easy thing.
I still don't think that's why Republicans ever sided against him.
Yeah.
I actually think they sided against him because of the drag stuff.
You
I
really
think,
think it's that much bigotry?
oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, they don't care about crimes. They've elected a convicted felon to be
Yeah.
their president. He leads their party. They don't care about crimes. In fact, I think crimes are part of the resume now.
Yeah.
And it's a burnishment to
It's
be a
almost a
Republican.
prerequisite it's almost a prerequisite on the job
Yes,
application.
like being a sexual predator. So that these are things that are positives if you're running um, as a Republican. So they're they're not going to oust anybody that is they don't have this gets into this issue that I think this is another thing I was talking about within the Democratic Party and the Democratic base because what happens with people who have principles, which is what the Democratic Party has, and good for them. But then what happens is you're upholding these principles. So the bar and the standard is very, very high for any Democrat that's running for office. You're laughing.
No, I'm smiling because I love what you're saying.
Um, because
I
it's Republican.
we have 2 more questions here. I got if you ready to, I don't mean to cut you off. You can circle back here if you want to. I think some of this might fit. Uh, are there C3, that's the second follow-up. We get follow-ups here. Are there vulnerable representatives that could change parties?
You mean change from a Democrat to a
A
Republican or
Republican to a
Republican?
Democrat, I assume.
Um, I have to look at the map. Have you looked at it recently?
Yeah, I don't think there's really anybody that could flip Republican to Democrat. And I don't even think there's anybody that could flip Democrat to Republican right now. The parties are pretty, especially in the House, they're pretty baked in. We have one more question, then I'm gonna let you get back to your original point
I
there.
don't remember
You're
what I
gonna
was
say
saying.
something really interesting. It's
Okay.
okay, we'll go. Will we be voting in 2026 and 2028?
Uh, yes, we will. Um,
Will
well,
voting still exist?
two. I'm going to answer this as a two-parter. We have to believe that we will vote and that it will matter, and that is really critical. And we have to be out there demanding that every single day. Um, and the state, the Secretary of States in your individual states is a good place also to put some pressure. Um, so everybody needs to feel that pressure. So that's number one. Number two, even if this turned into a complete autocracy the way Trump wants it to, it's likely they would still hold the elections, even though he said he wouldn't. It's just that the elections are rigged like they are in, Russia and Hungary. Like, so, um, a Trump rigged election, like he was projecting that this whole time. But I think we need to stay focused on, yes, we will be voting, and yes, it will matter. Um,
Technically an important point to technically bring up are the
Yeah,
difference between the United States, Russia, Turkey, Hungary, wherever. Um, elections aren't federally run and controlled here.
right.
They're state and local controlled. These are actually a series of five, 425 district elections in the United States run by state and local governments. That's why Trump's voting executive order was such an attempt to federalize elections. Now that's what we got to worry about is if there's ever a movement, either or legislation that Republicans can somehow pass through Congress. I don't think it would ever happen, but if it could, it would be to try to federalize control of elections. Because as long as elections remain state and local controlled, we will have elections. They will be fair. They will be free. Now, the movement to federalize elections is what you got to watch out for.
I don't think it's a fair election. I just want to put this out there. When people are purged off voting rolls and when minorities can't vote and they where they go to vote gets a bomb threat and women are not able to vote because they got married at some point, I, I just want to put that out there. It's good to uphold the value that we're going to have free and fair elections, but we have to look at who isn't being allowed to vote and just, that has to be platformed all the time because you can't just um, accept that as the norm. We can't just say, "Oh, okay, well, some people don't get to vote." Like that's to me, that is an attack on free and fair elections. So let me circle back to what I was saying about
There we go.
the Democratic Party. No, I just want to, when we get when there are new candidates or something comes up about somebody that's already in office that has a good position, um, or maybe somebody that could be easily taken out by a Republican. Democrats are upholding their values. So if this person is a sexual predator, if they aren't ethical, there's a lot of ways that a Democrat can be brought down because the bar is so high. But they are operating against people that have, they're run by a convicted criminal. They have no bar
Yeah.
and a adjudicated sexual assaulter, right? So there is no bar over there. Is that a detriment? Is that something that harms Democrats? And I hate to even ask that question because all of those bars are all parts of upholding um, our values, upholding human rights. Basic American values are what used to be. And I certainly don't want to be out here championing, oh, it shouldn't matter what you do. But when you look at the bigger picture, and I'm not saying that at all, but I do get concerned when I look at the bigger picture. How do you keep a candidate who can win in order to do good policies against people there's nothing that can bring them down? I just think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's about Democrats sometimes like the feeling of moral superiority that comes with, "Oh, we would never be like that." But there's also the sign of, "Okay, you're not like that. That's great." What do you do when your opponent is like that?
Right, that's what I'm getting at,
That's
exactly.
exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying.
What do you do when your opponent is like that and the American voters don't seem to care?
Yeah. Okay, we have a couple more questions. You
And
know
and
who that is.
somebody very enthusiastic in
Yeah,
the
you
background.
know who that is. Somebody who loves democracy all with all 4 of his paws.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Let's see now. Where does the SAVE Act stand?
Well, that is, um,
Federally? Dead.
feder yeah, dead on arrival federally, but as I brought up, this is being
That was from
implemented,
Jen Wren, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
um the SAVE Act is being implemented in states, or their Republicans are trying to get it implemented in states around the country. It is implemented in New Hampshire. So if anybody wants to see what the problems with the SAVE Act are, because they don't really believe that there's problems with it, all they need to do is go take a gander at what happened in New Hampshire already, where they had women who couldn't vote, because one of them, because she had a divorce in 1970 in Florida, and they no longer have the paperwork for that. She couldn't get it, so
Yeah.
she can't. So now she can never vote again once she moves out of that state. Um, this was a smaller election. They were very concerned, like what, how many people are we going to be turning away? In a general election, in a large election, in a federal election, um, it's the problems with this are huge, and I think probably all of our viewers already know that. But just to, if you're talking to people and you want to explain to them what the problem is, tell them to go look at New Hampshire.
New Hampshire is the example and the case study that will make it all very clear is what you're saying.
Yes, and I think people should definitely uh, stay on top of their states. Like, make sure that you're watching what legislation they're pushing. If they try to push this, that's another time to go out and write letters, protest, make phone calls. Yeah.
Our friend Sean has a question. This is something he grapples with as a pragmatic progressive. Hope my chat window just slid down on me as more people join. Let me see if I can slide up. There we go. Oh, I slid up too far. Give me 1 second here. Sean, I'm sorry. Here we go. If you guys have time, here's a question I grapple with as a pragmatic progressive who is also becoming more radicalized a little more each day, like Sarah. Should Democrats be less concerned with about preserving or saving all the norms slash decorum that Trump and MAGA have destroyed and focus more on fighting fire with fire? I still feel like many in the Democratic Party are clinging to the old playbook while Trump and his allies stopped using it long ago.
Sean, this is why I so appreciate your work. Yes, I'm grappling with the exact same problem. I This has come up for me when I've been on other shows. Um,
You go on other shows?
I I don't think that I let's see, what's the word I want to, the civility politics the Democrats have been steeped in, and a lot of that goes to what you we were just talking about the way that Democrats want to be, you know, morally superior. Um, that obviously is not effective. Um, I hate to say that because I don't want a world where we're all acting like Donald Trump, and I don't want a world where we're all acting like Mitch McConnell. I don't want to vote for people who behave that way. But there has to be some kind of middle ground where Democrats can have, a powerful punch rhetorically to stand for something, and we do see that. We see that in AOC. We see that in Bernie Sanders. We see that in Cory Booker. Um, we see it in several uh, Democratic governors. There are people that are kind of threading that needle, that are doing that without losing um, civility. But what is? I think there's been way too much trying to keep things Democrats, and yeah, under Biden, I think that's exactly what they were trying to do, was preserve the norms, respect the norms, um, support all the institutionalism. But it was a good effort, and I understand why they did it, but it failed.
Yep.
Ultimately failed, and here we are. And so that isn't working.
And that does remind me a lot of, and I just made this connection in my head right now as you were talking. Hillary Clinton also ran as a very norms based candidate against Trump.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like focusing on norms doesn't resonate with voters the way maybe it should. Maybe the argument isn't about norms, but about a more moralistic right and wrong.
Right. I think that's exactly it. And the norms, and I think this is what one thing that the Democrats and the people that, it isn't just Democrats, but it's like the kind of DC culture. There's way too much emphasis on all of that. Instead, what's happening, to people, as grocery prices increase, as they're getting buried under this and that and this and that, um, they are getting angry. And now here's Trump and he's, he's threatening their social security and he's threatening their kids' education. People are mad and they just have to be spoken to with, yes, you can be morally correct and you can be have that sense of righteousness, but it needs to be based in just talking to people about the issues that matter to them and not in these professorial lectures. I love a professorial lecture myself. Barack Obama, loved his presidency. I loved listening to him. It, because it was very, it was, it was erudite and, and he was intellectual and it was really uplifting. But we're not in that space anymore, And I think even Michelle Obama recently said, forget go high when they go low. And I think that goes to the question that was asked. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
yeah,
It exactly answers it. Like, I think
yeah.
you don't have to go low like they do, but you also can't expect the the playing field to be the same.
A bully has to
They're
be
not
punched
playing
in
by
the
the same
face.
rules.
And I don't mean that physically. This is a metaphor. Um, I'm not advocating for violence, but a bully has to be punched in the face. And I knew this. I know everybody remembers lessons from school. I remember when I was in sixth grade, and there was this girl that always picked on other students, and she was picking on a bunch of these students. And I went up and told her, you know, this isn't cool, and you're not a very good person. And she came back at me and said, "I heard you said this about me." I said, "I did say that because you're mean to people." So, and then she stopped. It's like, you, if I had just been kissing her behind, she probably wouldn't have stopped doing that. Bullies,
Yeah.
they, they become, like the Wizard of Oz. They're this big until you call them out, and then it's the little man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Exactly. That's great advice, not just in politics, but in life. Let's say some hellos. Cassie and Linda Lowe. Cassie Patterson and Linda Lowe.
Hi,
Hello.
guys.
Thanks for joining us. Ed Evans and Nancy Kennedy. Hello. Thank you for coming. Erica Jamal McMahon. Hi, Erica. Glad to have you here. Rachel Stone. Hi. Jane Alpert, Andrea, Heather Varnish, Lillian. Lillian, you've left a few comments. Thank you very much. We appreciate them. Hello. Okay, I think we got some more people out here. Mickey Perez just joined. Hi, Mickey. Welcome. There. We have a few people I think I might have went by, but sorry if I did. I'm trying to catch up and say hi to you guys.
Yeah, this is like our test run. Can we just put that out there? This is
Yeah,
a test run of our dual hosting. The technology alone was, I think I have a major headache from it because it didn't go well, and I can't stand that kind of stress of
yeah.
stuff not working well. But it's all here now, so
Well, I apologize on my end because there was a lot of things that I didn't realize as far as us having a joint account
right,
and then trying to get two people with one joint account. Then we had to split it up, and oh my,
right.
they got
Well,
mixed up.
the directions did not include that,
Yeah,
so here we are.
yeah.
Uh,
We were operating a little bit out of the box, let's say. So
yeah,
we had to kind of improvise a little bit. Well, so hey, oh, Lillian just said, "Hey, good to see you guys right side up." Yes, it is good to be right
yeah.
side up.
Thanks. Yeah, it's our major accomplishment for the day. Yeah, at least for me. I can only speak for myself. Um,
3C, so excited to have you guys live. We are very excited to be here.
yeah, we are.
Uh,
It's really nice to have this connection with you guys, and I think during this administration, this is going to be really important just to have this ability to touch base and talk about stuff in a kind of more freewheeling kind of way.
C3, so excited to have you guys here live! Exclamation point. We are too. Uh, C3 also added, always read, share your work.
Oh, thank you.
Lillian is letting us know technology is great until it's not. I
Yeah,
second that. David Weitzman, welcome. Glad to have you here. Jennifer Charlesworth, welcome. People are still joining us as we speak. I feel like as people keep joining, I want to keep talking just a little bit more so that everybody gets to the
Well,
flavor of Ellen Swirsky. Eileen, sorry. Eileen. I knew I was going to get one name wrong today, and I'm sorry it was yours.
you're doing better than
Hello.
I would. Uh, let me. I don't know if everybody's been looking at this, and I'm just going to jump in there with yet another topic because there's, as usual, Trump. This is why the media wanted him in. There's so much to talk about. It's never
Yeah.
ending, right? Um, the Ed Martin confirmation that's in doubt now.
Yeah.
Uh, the one that couldn't remember his controversial past statements. I think something came out today. He had he had disclosed roughly 60 appearances on Russian state media that he had omitted previously. Like you do, you just forget.
Yeah.
Don't you forget? I forget all the time when I'm on Russian state media. It just goes right over my head.
By
As
the way,
well as
you were invited to be on Russian state media.
I was, and I said no. That's right.
One of the
That was
best
years
career
ago.
decisions you've ever made. Yes, it was.
Um, as well as a podcast that he recorded with the defunct right wing website VDare. I think that's a white nationalist, a white supremacist.
I believe so.
So yeah, so that's one of Trump's great people. He called President Biden, then President Biden, Hitler in October of 2022. So his responses that he submitted under oath, um, he then spent a lot of time deflecting and distancing himself from. These people, this
Yeah.
is all like such a lack of integrity. If you really believe these things, why don't you want to tell the American people about it? Why
Isn't
are you
he
hiding?
the isn't he the Stop the Still lawyer that defended the
Yeah,
1/6 insurrectionists?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's
And
like,
Trump nominated him to be the US attorney for Washington, DC, I believe.
yes. Now you put this together with what I was bringing up in the beginning
The
about
Bondi family.
the Bondi family and the DC bar leadership position sought by Brad Bondi to have control over 120,000 lawyers in the United States. And you can see how they are trying to remake the judiciary in the whole country to be a Trump loyalist operation.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
exactly what appears to be going on. We got some new people and we got a new question.
okay.
Robin and Deborah Leonard have joined. Hello. Great to have you here. David Weitzman has a question for us. Can the SCOTUS send federal marshals to arrest Trump and or members of his regime, Bondi, for traitorous behavior and or contempt of court? This is
Can who?
interesting. Can the Supreme Court
Oh,
I'll read the question again 'cause I think I might have a little
yeah.
fast. Can the Supreme Court send federal marshals to arrest Trump and or members of his regime, like Bondi, for traitorous behavior and or contempt of court?
I mean, I'd have to look that up. Do you know the direct answer to that?
Yes, I do
Oh,
know the answer to that.
all right, go.
Because Jamie Raskin has been talking about this.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
If the Supreme Court would find a member of the Trump administration in contempt, they can impose sanctions like any other court, I assume. And those sanctions can, in fact, include sending members of the Trump administration to jail. They can include fines. I'm not sure this Supreme Court would ever get to that point, but I'm also not sure they wouldn't right now, given the way that Trump has defied their orders. Uh, so that's probably not the best answer. Like, I'm not sure it could go either way, but yeah, the courts have the power to do that, David.
Wait, but yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and I think you're right. You can't answer um this court that has been so corrupted. Um, they're now, and that's mostly the conservatives on it. Not, I think not all of them. Um, I would actually, and I don't. I'm going to take the Handmaid's Tale woman out of that. I don't think she's actually part of that corruption. Um, Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
Uh, which is weird. I wonder. I have always wondered what's going on there. But the way that he has undercut their own power. This is, and I think it's wrong that the only time they seem to care about the rule of law is when he is kind of laughing in their face and taking their power away. But this is what it comes to with a lot of kind of bad people. They,
Yeah.
it will wait till they it happens to them, and then suddenly it's
Yeah.
a big problem. So I do wonder about that. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't see that ever happening, but it's a really good image. Oh, you've been joined by somebody. Um,
I have been joined.
Aw,
Hi, buddy.
that's cute. Uh, you know what's happened? Did you hear about what's happening at the Newark airport
Yeah.
with the massive
Please let the
disruptions?
folks know if they haven't.
Yeah, there's like over 800 flight cancellations and delays of up to 5 hours. There's due to air traffic control system failures. And Sean Duffy, who's the transportation secretary, he said similar delays could spread nationwide. In case you were wondering, is this Trump's fault?
Yeah, and that would be
And
the
now you
answer.
have your
It
answer.
sounds like a yes to me.
Yeah. Um, this level, I mean, it's really scary because I think somebody was saying on MSNBC, maybe it was Maddow, that air traffic controllers completely lost sound or sight and any communication with the planes they were directing for a minute.
Yeah.
Um, and just like the question was asked, do you know how far planes travel in a minute? Some controllers were sent on leave. Others were in tears, and some let it be known that Newark was unsafe. Don't fly here, they said.
Yeah.
So, not to scare people, but again, like you have to know what's going on so you can make informed decisions for yourselves and for your family.
This is what happens when you take a chainsaw and just randomly start cutting government employees.
Yeah, now that's Elon Musk, right? But doing what Trump empowered him to do. And I think the way that, and I write about this all the time, so I'm sure most people that are listening already know, but I do want to reiterate the point. People focus all their hatred on Elon Musk, and that's what Trump does. He uses one person to implement his agenda for a short period of time, and then he eventually, their lives are destroyed usually, but then he gets rid of them. And with that person goes all the negative baggage, all the
Yeah.
branding of like, this is the person that just tried to destroy our social security. That goes away with the person who leaves. But it's really Donald Trump.
Yeah.
These are all Donald Trump's doings.
There's a lot of human shield kind of behavior that Trump
Right,
uses.
right.
We
Like
got
Elon
more
Musk
we
used
got
with his
people are still joining us. They have not apparently had enough yet. Um, Robin and Deborah Leonard, hello. Rich and Elizabeth Draper, hello. Hi, Chuck. Welcome to the chat. I will resist.
Yes,
I
good.
will. I am happy to have you here, and so is Sarah. Lillian left us a comment here. When this is over, they all must be tried for their crimes. There must be accountability. Carol North and Julie Cruz are here. Debbie Holmes and Stacy Plowman Clark are here. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Sarah
everybody.
and I are so happy to have you here.
I want to go back to her question
Yeah.
about people being held accountable. That gets to something I've been saying this since George W. Bush left office, and it has not happened yet. But we cannot continue just like a dysfunctional family. You can't sweep things under the rug and just try to gloss over it and hope it's going to get better. Actually, this corruption that we see in the Republican Party is we can actually trace this back to Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And a lot of what Trump does is like Nixon on steroids. Nixon, if he was, in with the Russians or in with an enemy, a hostile foreign nation, the way Trump is. Imagine Nixon if he were close with an enemy of America. That's what we have in office right now. But that was only enabled because of all the ways that we did not deal with this um, these attacks on the rule of law and how many people were given pardons and all of this stuff. Like, it's got to end. You're not going to clean house this way. And all of that, if we get this guy out of here, we got to have somebody who is willing to do the job.
Yeah.
Merrick
Oh,
Garland,
there you go. I was just going to bring it up to you to make sure you talked about it.
Merrick Garland, who I think is would have made a wonderful Supreme Court justice, and he has such a great temperament. He is a um, intellectually honest person. He does not have the temperament that we needed in the attorney general's office. And I said it when it happened. So this is not like backtracking. It's just that was my biggest criticism of the Biden administration. He was not taking care of business, and look at what has happened.
Yeah.
If those people, if the 1-6 people had been prosecuted sooner, if Donald Trump had been prosecuted sooner, we wouldn't even be here right now. But over and over again, uh, and it isn't just him, but I mean, he was at the top. So we were let down. The American people were let down. We shouldn't have a president that's a convicted criminal,
Yeah.
right? Like this is an outrage. It's embarrassing.
And to circle back, was it right? Do you think the Biden administration rested on restoring norms and it would fix things? If we just restore Dora's norms and values to the White House, things would fix themselves? Do you think they did enough? Do you think what do you think?
Well, I think they were doing things that they don't have control over everything they needed to do. Like number one, they were doing things. Joe Biden was all those because remember I was covering those White House calls, um, all the policy calls, and they were building these factories all over the country and doing all this infrastructure, creating all these jobs. That stuff, if we had just had a few more years, that stuff takes time to go into to be felt in the community and even to go into effect. That stuff would have really gone a long way. People have a good job. They're not as easily swayed by a strongman argument. When people see the rule of law is working, they're not, that goes to the Merrick Garland failure. People get radicalized and they are more susceptible to the message of of a of a dictator, of a strongman when their lives are not going well. They think this person, and he makes these promises, he's a charlatan. I'm going to fix the egg prices day one. Obviously hasn't done that and doesn't even care now. So
Yeah.
I think that I do think the Biden administration tried and they had a lot of good ideas and they were really competent. I mean,
Oh yeah, they were the most competent administration I've seen in a
it's so
really long
tragic
time.
to have gone from that to this. I still can't even wrap my head around it. Um, to go from this organized, competent, everybody's doing their job and they're getting there. They were there in advance for all these disasters. They were planning. They were so organized. And man, people didn't know what they had. And I think that's another problem. That,
I I think people are realizing it now, and that's why Trump has fallen so fast.
but are they really? I mean, did they even know? Most people didn't know what Biden was doing. Remember that
Well,
those
I think
report,
they know they understand incompetence when they see it in willful destruction.
yeah, but they didn't. There's still this narrative going around that you know well, at least this stuff wasn't happening under Biden. That's the narrative. What I'm saying is it's not that. It's that the Biden administration was the most competent administration in my lifetime.
Yeah,
And people didn't know that. That is a
yeah,
critical failure. Why did that happen? Well, we can always blame Democrats for bad messaging. And Joe Biden didn't take credit for all the stuff he was doing. He didn't put his name on it. We saw that with the infrastructure stuff happening around here in Pennsylvania. Would have been great if he had, Biden's highway project or whatever, like then people would have known, but they didn't know. And we had those New York Times reporters that said it wasn't their job to tell people about Joe Biden's policies. That was his problem. How are people supposed to know if the media doesn't want to inform them about what's happening? So that is a problem. And just to give them, to take partisanship out of it, they seem to want a clown show like Trump, which is exciting. There's a lot to cover for them. I don't find this exciting. This is an assault on my nervous system. I don't find this great at all. I don't like it. But the media in general likes it. They don't like a boring president like Joe Biden who's getting stuff done. What is there to cover? You're going to cover policy? You know, most people don't care about policy. They don't read about it.
Most in the media don't understand policy.
And well, that's another problem. But our readers, like to read about it.
Yeah.
So, but they're people that are more educated about politics. But the general public doesn't isn't even aware of those things. So how do you make the argument for competent government when people don't even know when they have it? What are the most
I think again the argument has to be made in simple, non-personalized terms. Simple personalized terms. Not we are a competent government, but this is what the government does for you when it works.
Yeah,
How the government works for you. Democrats are really good when they start focusing on things like fairness and individuals and impact around, as Biden always said, kitchen table, but impact around the things that impact people directly. And that's what when they start making arguments that are a little too intellectual, that's when people start to tune out. Not the Democratic base, but
right.
the general audience. Oh, we got some stuff to catch up on here. Okay. We have some comments to read. Let me go back up a bit. David Weitzman, comment. All the hand wringing is frustrating and in and of itself. At some
Mhm.
point, does not a big action need to happen to send a message that the rule of law still exists? Would the country be lifted up over its fear if a bold action like an arrest showed that the brakes can be pumped on the runaway corruption and anti-constitutional train?
Yeah. Yes. I think that would be a great thing for the country to see. But
Jim Sullivan. This is a question. I'm not sure how you will answer this one. I have an idea. Jim Sullivan, what percentage of people would not fly today due to fear of crashing?
mm, uh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't have an answer to that, but let's just say as soon as he took office, um I and several of my friends said, "Oh, we won't be flying anytime soon if we can avoid it. If you have to do something, you have to do it." But um, trying to avoid it is always, can be. That's my first response. I didn't have faith in this guy the first time he came into office, and I remember one one of the things I did was I'm like, I don't trust these people to deal with emergencies. And we saw that with storms that we've had here, like the sort of uh the attacks on the weather people and the way they collect data, like, we're not getting information.
Yeah.
So, the way that we should.
On election night 2016, I believe I told you this man is going to kill people when I was
Is this
talking
like,
about Trump after he won.
are you talking to me or is that a comment?
No, that's to you. I
Yes, and
believe
I'm
and
sure I'm in with you.
that's exactly what happened. I mean, COVID. We have all the no we have all the,
Right.
we have all the evidence we need about his lack of compassion and care and ineptitude and incompetence at governing with COVID.
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID, Jim Sullivan left us the comment, "Biden left us with the best recovering economy after COVID than any other country in the world. Why don't people see this?"
Again, I think the media, um, really, let's just, because there's a lot of different, I don't want to ascribe motives to everyone across, like do a blanket condemnation of the media. But I will say that to they failed to do their job. And I think maybe the point that we should all be realizing is their job isn't to inform people. That's what they've decided. Their job is to get attention, to get reads, to get clicks, to get views. It's not to inform people. The news used to be about informing people, but then, the news, that's way back, the news was a loss leader. There's so much erosion that has happened in terms of the point of the news. Um, and and then we've seen it as the websites, the whole landscape of the internet has changed. So that's another way that people got informed that they're not able to get as easily anymore.
Yeah, and there's a definite problem with informing people in this country.
Yeah. Uh,
And it's a very clear problem, and but there's a direct correlation between I hate to use conservatives, low information voters and how they vote,
yeah.
and how they voted in 2024 and how easily they can be misled.
Right. I mean, that is always really alarming to me. And we certainly in this little Trump district, at least I'm deluged with people's political takes here
Yeah,
when they don't have a clue what's going on. But I even see this, um, I see this in progressives who, and this really disturbs me, who they will say things like, we need a candidate that has a paid leave policy, and I'm like, Kamala Harris had a paid leave. Like, they don't seem to even know what her policies were.
yeah,
And so that isn't just the all voters. That's like there's this goes across the board. I don't think obviously our readers are not living in that world, but way too many people are only getting trickles of information and the stuff they're getting isn't accurate.
yeah, yeah, and that's a problem, and a lot of it is that misinformation is a bit like a virus, is in that a lot of people get information from their friends and family, and if your friend or family member is misinformed and gives you bad information, you're
Yeah.
more likely to believe it and then spread it to others.
Yeah.
So that's a whole problem. Couple people, Barry, hi,
Hi, Barry.
Bull, Bulwark, New Zealand, Bulwark and Z, I should say, Contingent New Zealand joined. Hello.
Hi.
Anne and Dennis Smith. It's not complicated. Oh, it is complicated if you're trying to get your Substack live to work this morning.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen Burns. Hello. Stephen
You
Gertzen and
guys,
Norma Otto. Hello. And we have a lot of great people here that are very vocal and commenting and talking to us.
great. Well, they are all using the Substack app better than we did.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. We
congratulations, you guys.
probably well, yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll get better.
Yeah.
We'll get better.
Um, well, I used
Hopefully.
this at the rally, and it's like it took me a while. I had something clipped on my phone. It's why I could not see the exit. So I was like sitting there trying to how my first one that I ever did. I'm like, I can't close it.
Yeah,
And I ended up having to turn my phone off because I
yeah,
couldn't close it down. So it's just a learning process. But normally I would not go into something without knowing how to end it. You know,
yeah.
I'm not George W. Bush. I don't just,
You don't just
get into
hang
a
a mission.
war
You didn't
with
just
no
hang a
exit
mission
strategy.
accomplished banner over the rally and
Yeah.
walk away.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
yeah, I think this is a good point to stop, don't you?
yeah, um, I just wanna last thing I'm gonna say is that Mattel is going to increase prices on toys due to
Oh,
Trump's
well,
tariffs. So,
remember, your little girl doesn't need $30. You can
she
get
doesn't
by
need
with
$30.
3 or
You know
4
what?
or none.
My and it could be that your kid is like Barron. I'm sure most people's kids are like Barron. They have that huge, you know, rocking horse in the side of their gold, apartment penthouse, um, and servants waiting on you, and you really only need one servant. Like, why do you need, a bunch of servants? You only need a few dolls and you only need a few servants, right?
Does
Everybody,
that I have not heard anyone point out how absolutely condescending it is for a billionaire to tell poor people that their children don't need things.
I mean, if he's a billionaire now, it's because he scammed so many people with
Yeah.
his meme coins and all of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, the way that he's kind of Marie Antoinetting himself pretty regularly now. And I don't know if it's because he's so out of touch. Maybe I mean, actually, he inherited money, so he's never even dealt with managing a budget of a regular household. He probably has
Yeah,
no idea. Um, so it's funny that he ran on the price of eggs, and
yeah, and
everybody
the great irony is someone who has no clue or concern about the lives of regular people
yeah.
was a person that a small subset of swing state voters decided was the run to handle their problems.
Yep,
And this is what happens.
yep.
So
Misinformation.
we will be back. Oh, Lillian just had a great comment. Being poor is the hardest work you will ever do.
That is so true. And you know what? All those single moms too, like that's the comment about the the toys. It kills me. Like think about all those single moms that are just struggling to buy one toy for their kid.
Yeah.
And now
Yes.
that's so much harder and their Christmas or their holidays, their birthdays are going to be even that much harder.
Yeah. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
It is. It is. But
And, it's easy to say, well, the heck with those people, they voted for Trump. But you have to remember, there's a whole lot of people here who either didn't vote or didn't vote for Donald Trump that are getting caught up in suffering because of these policies.
we never want to be people who cheer on suffering of other people.
Yeah.
That's where all of this is coming from.
Yeah.
They have bred a culture that cheers on suffering of other people. That is a toxin, and that is when you have become a monster. So let me drop in something positive that happens, and then we'll close out. Just a little news here that the big win in Pennsylvania on Friday. Pennsylvania voters, they we got two wins for two different disenfranchisement efforts that Republicans were pushing. So one is that the undated and wrongly dated mail-in ballots, they will be counted now, and the other is that the courts rejected this far-right bid to purge close to 300,000 voters from the rolls. So that's a big win. So this stuff can happen. Good things are still happening, and the fight is continuing.
Yes, it is. And there are good things happening every day. Just
Yeah.
they tend to get buried because the media likes to cover the chaos.
Yeah, and also, I mean, people don't seem to tune in for good news.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody's paying attention to politics now. There's all people getting into politics that weren't in it before, as commentators now, because this is where the game is, because they got the, clown in office. And so now this is like the hot place to be.
Yeah.
I would rather it not be. I would rather we not be so cool, like this isn't what everybody wants to listen to. Like let's have a competent president and just have things organized. But that's not, we're back in the clown show.
And remember, everybody, the Daily is the OG newsletter that Sarah and I have written. Aha. Politicus USA moved to Substack at the start of the year. We encourage you to subscribe.
Yeah, that's a big part of what I was talking about with the media landscape, that we work so hard to keep Politicus open not as a Substack. And we did do that through the election, but that was at you know,
Yeah, we
our own
we
detriment.
suffered for that one.
Yeah, for like at least 2 years.
Yeah.
So we limped along until the election. That was what we wanted to get to. But anyway, so
So
now, you, eh,
the Daily is where you can find Sarah's brilliant long form writing virtually every day. You
thank
can
you.
I'm over there too. Not as brilliant, not as long form.
Well, yeah, you're not as long as me. Yeah, and that is not a compliment for everyone that is an editor or knows an editor. That's not always a
Well,
compliment. Um, but
if
what
you're
I'm,
a really good if you're a really good writer, there's nothing to cut in a long piece.
well,
Um, well, also I do the daily news headline little blurb, keep you informed to
yeah,
Politicus USA.
and you do that without
Sarah
scaring
is
people.
also over there, but she is so busy with her many projects, she doesn't get to pop over to Politicus as often as we'd like to see her. Um, but she is also there. Don't want you to think it's just me, it's both of us. There are 2 very different kinds of writing. One of them
Yeah.
has a lot more depth and insight and substance, and if you like the long form, the daily is the place for you to be. It is daily, literally the name the daily.
Yep.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
yes, and it's so great to have everybody here, and I love these conversations. My phone is gonna die, so I'm gonna go. But
Okay.
thank you everybody so much for tuning in, and we will do this. Are we gonna do this monthly or weekly? We gotta discuss
Oh,
that.
weekly.
Weekly. Oh, I guess we're doing it weekly. Okay, so
I
we'll be
would
doing
like
it
to do it
weekly.
weekly. We'll discuss, though, depending on how
See?
schedules work.
It's all right.
I
That
didn't wanna
sounds
rope
good.
you in. I didn't want you
No,
ain't
no,
wanna
it's
rope you in.
cool. It's
Okay.
good.
We'll
Okay.
discuss.
All right. Thanks. All right. Bye.
Okay, everybody, then we're gonna wrap this up, and, thank you for being here. If you got here late, you can watch the replay of the whole, video. We are very excited to have you here. I will be around trying to do some short videos for you guys as events happen, and we can talk about things that are going on. Uh, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for sticking around through all of our technical problems, which were my technical problems. Thank you. We will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.